Hi, this is Eternal King. Bringing you another episode today, mostly a discussion video. So for those who have been playing LOR a long time, there used to be something called pass bluffing, which is not something that has been a thing in the game for probably about a year now, because it's been so exceptionally high tempo. There used to be a 50-50 question of like, okay, do you play the thing on curve, or do you open pass, hope the opponent plays something, and then play your on curve threat? And it used to be like a 50-50 equation on whether or not you did that. There was a lot of thought involved. But increasingly, as sort of on-curve threats have gotten better and better, and because there's more and more cycling and more inevitable value in the game, the question of whether or not to play a high-tempo threat on curve became very binary. The answer was always yes. It's like, does Samara come down on 2 if you have the attack token? The answer is 100% yes. There is never a reason why you don't play Samara on turn 2 with the attack token. Do you play a turn 1 lurk creature on turn 1? If you have it, absolutely. Do you play turn 1 Annie when you have the Annie? Yes, you do. But the dev team, I think, is starting to realize this, that older LOR had a charm to it. Jax is another case of like he used to be very high tempo on curve threat. So the dev team's starting to recognize this. They're starting to like pull back on the tempo. So Lurk was the first to be hit, Samara was the second to be hit, and that was pretty huge because they were the best turn 1 and turn 2 tempo decks. So now, yeah, there is a question of like, if I give an example like Victor. So I just had a game recently with Zoe Victor, and it was a very illustrative game, and I think that's why I'm going to talk about it, because it was a game that the opponent didn't need to lose as badly as they lost. They played their Zoe turn 1. They got 1 free swing, which is normal. On turn 3, I played a challenger that also allowed me to remove a keyword, but they generate a card. They silenced the challenger, and then I effectively silenced the Zoe. And then they proceeded to play the Victor on turn 4 on curve because that's just how you play with the Mahjong style of LOR, where it's just like, okay, you answered this thing, I play this thing. You answered this thing, I play this thing. Then I play my big, value generator at the end. That's how you play LOR. The reality is, though, if the opponent had open passed into me on the turn 4, basically saying, okay, well, the silence on Zoe is not permanent. It's only for this turn. What are you going to do, ramp player? If they had just asked that question of like, okay, cool, good line of play, what are you going to do now? And if they had asked me that question, I all of a sudden would be put on the back foot, and I'd have no idea what I should do. But instead, they played the Victor on curve, and I was like, okay, snap remove Victor. Then I can snap remove the Zoe next turn, and this game's over. That line of play immediately lost them that game. There was no coming back. Anything I did after that was pointless. But, of course, I turbo leveled the ASOL just to show that I had it, and that game was over. So again, with this older school style of LOR, kind of returning back to its roots, you're going to see a resurgence of pass bluffing. You're going to see a little bit more chicken in the way that cards get played. Okay, I'm going to play Victor on the end step instead of when I have the turn priority, and I'm just going to lead with Victor. I'm gonna play the Tom Kench on the pass step instead of the intro step, right? I'm going to play the Rise, perhaps not on curve at all. Maybe you just don't play Rise on curve now, right? Shyvana, same thing. Maybe you lead with... and the other thing is, it used to be you would lead with followers and kind of follow up with champions. And now you're leading with champions and kind of following up with followers and your value generators. And that has proven to be very strong in the past. You play Shyvana again, you play Shyvana a third time. But increasingly, the devs are starting to book in or buffer in enough value generation for all the regions that most things can be answered. My favorite new card of the set, and like I love this card. This card is everything that kind of Freljord and Demacia needed. And like it's such a good kit and caboodle. It's like destroy a unit's equipment. So if you're against a Jax deck and they're gonna slam Ornn or something, you can take that equipment and remove it from the game. The opponent wants to play a troublesome landmark. And they're like, okay, well, they're Demacia or Freljord, and Demacia or Freljord doesn't have any landmark removal. Well, now you do. You absolutely have cheap landmark removal, and you can't just cheese out that region combination with your high-value landmark. Elusives. Elusives have been such a pain for Freljord. Not Demacia, because Demacia has like Badger Bear, but Freljord specifically just struggles with elusives so badly. So Explorer's Bundle is amazing. It does require, because it's focus speed, it's not like a silver bullet, but it's very good. And then of course you can do the Tavern Keeper thing as well in the aggro matchup. So I love this card. I think this card is everything that, most pro players will look at this and be like, wow, what a bad card. It's a dual region 2/3 challenger. It doesn't do anything. It actually does everything. And this is kind of, in terms of like a Swiss Army knife style of, I'm going to answer your your tempo and your value generator, and I'm going to do it on turn 3. It doesn't matter what kind of cheese you're running. I can play this on turn 3, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have some sort of unique answer for it. I love this card. It's very hard to play around, and it allows you to play around tons of things, everything. So amazing card, love it to bits. But yeah, back to kind of turn passing or card bluffing. Again, when I played the Scholarly Pioneer, and then the opponent had to answer the Pioneer with the card generated from the Zoe, and then I could answer that line of play with the Explorer's Bundle. That game was already flipping my way. As soon as that exact sequence happened, that game was flipping my way. Now they had when that happens, when your opponent does something that puts you on that back foot, that's when you want to evaluate pass bluffing, right? If you know that, like, oh shit, well, I'm already going to lose this game. Just based on that line of play alone. If you know that, that's when you want to start really flexing your pass priority. You really want to start looking into that. So yeah, if he had passed on the Victor play, the subsequent Victor play after that exact sequence, I would have been thinking about spending my 4 mana to snap remove the Zoe, because the elusive would be going back on her and she'd be generating infinite cards and whatever. But instead, because the opponent played the Victor, I just snap remove the Victor, remove Zoe next turn. Because again, she doesn't have elusive, so it's no big deal. So yeah, if they had just, played something else, or, passed. Again, you could play something else that's, I believe it was an Invoke deck, so they could have played 1,000,000 Invoke cards. Or they could have passed and played the Victor. But just any sort of, buffering in your champ value later into the game is not something we've seen lately from LOR, but I highly recommend it. So give it a shot. It's not for everyone, but now that LOR is moving slightly away from tempo, you can start exploring playing some of these cards, the Teemo, the Caitlyn's, the Ezreal's. Like, you can start exploring, Echo. Try exploring off-curve play. And try exploring your pass bluffing, and like you'll see that you're going to do far better in the current state of LOR, where we're moving away from on-curve tempo just to open up new lines of play. And it feels very old school. It feels great. This is kind of what LOR was at its onset, which is kind of Gwent mixed with MTG. So you can have those mind games, and I love it. I think this patch is like the best thing they could have done. All right, this is Eternal King signing out.